There we go. Hey, John.
Good evening.
It's a veritable rogues gallery on my screen.
Indeed.
Good to see you, Blake.
You are roguish. Good to see you.
I resent the veritable, Dan.
Oh, but by rogue, I meant ruggedly handsome.
Dan, your shirt is moraine.
I know.
Yeah.
I thought I'd add a little. I'd bedazzle this this crowd.
Reminiscent of the 70s for me. Yeah. Well, let's see.
Does this meet with your approval, Blake?
I like it.
Yeah,
both ways. Both ways is great. This
Get a
is just
tie on there, please,
just a sousance of moraine right here.
Dan. Are we playing Mr. Potato Head with Dan's hair?
I resemble that remark.
And Tom Wellman is observing the rule of thirds there, or almost.
Observing the rule of thirds.
Yeah, see, so the rule of thirds says that the point of interest should be there. You divide the screen into thirds
Okay.
from a compositional standpoint. So,
Well, probably the interest is like 10% of mine is interesting with my screen.
see now,
The rest
now,
is,
now
yeah.
Dick is on the rule of thirds. Now he's not.
Word to the wise, Tom. If you leave room for a deep fake, people will take advantage of it. Like, tomorrow you're going to be on screen with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah.
Hi,
That's why.
Sally and Frank.
fill
How you
it with my
doing, Lisa? Welcome. Whoop, 6:31. We're late. So let's get started. Do you have a quorum there, John? John's offline there.
That's a yes.
Okay, we're good. Okay. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Select Board special meeting of Thursday, March 31st, 2022. And calling the meeting to order. And I spy with my little eye Frank, Sally, Lisa, and Blake. So there is a quorum from the Select Board. And over to you, John.
Thanks. I'll call to order the budget board meeting for same date, March 31st. And on our team, we've got Dan Sayre, Dick Moran, Tom Wellman, and John Costin, Vice Chair, acting.
And I'll keep an eye, I'll keep a weather eye on the attendees right now. We have Lionel and Roland are in the bullpen there as attendees. So I guess without further ado, we will turn the meeting over to our good friend Joel Downs and let him lead us through this, which is a first public hearing, if I'm not mistaken, or second public hearing, I'm sorry.
First public hearing for the budget.
First.
Yep, exactly. So,
So the
typically what
first
I
is
do
today, the second will be on the 31st of May. So
That's
over to you, Joel.
typically what I do, bear with me while I get everything set up here. I go through a PowerPoint that summarizes where we left off on February 5th. And this time around, we have actually have two changes proposed. And so you'll see that towards the end of this presentation. I'll go through this fairly rapidly because this, for most people, this is a a review. So budget information is available for rebroadcast on Channel 5, Spectrum Cable Channel 5. I've seen myself way too frequently lately, so talking on and on and on. So other opportunities to watch this on-demand streaming through Town Hall Streams, and all of the full budget documents are available online. Kennebunk mission statement: the town of Kennebunk partners with our community members to deliver superior service in the most efficient and effective manner possible, while preserving, protecting, and enhancing the quality of life as we plan for the future. Outside considerations: you've seen this before. However, I have made a couple changes. COVID-19 is still here, still lurks in the background. CPI, we've seen around 6%. RSU budget and additional state aid funds for Kennebunk, that's still in the background. And actually, I have a slide addressing that we'll get to the end. You'll notice that I've got a black arrow to $1.6 million. Of course, the town utilities, future projects, those are always in the background as well. And then bond interest rates anticipated to rise in 2022 as the Federal Reserve Fed fund rate increases. We'll see increases in our municipal bond interest rate as well. Recent conversations with our bond advisor from Moores and Cabot, we're looking at 3.25 to 3.75 for the fall timeframe. So I'm planning according to that. Tax bill, you've seen that. We've all paid our taxes, and our second half taxes are coming due as of April 8th. Collection still looks strong. However, I'll reserve judgment until April 9th. So we'll see how we stand on April 9th. The tax allocation. Municipal budget is roughly 22%, county is roughly 4%, and the school, the balance at 74.5%. So that actually is higher than 100%, and we'll ignore that for the time being. Operations. So given where we left off on February 5th, operations, the increase to the mill rate, I should say, operations is roughly 30 cents. For debt service, roughly 30 cents. So total increase is, again, roughly 60 cents. Where that finally comes down, we won't know until we actually set the mill rate. And when Dan Robinson, assessor, proposes that to the select board sometime generally in the middle of August. Other items on the list, I just can't speak tonight, so bear with me. Fiscal year 22-23 capital, vehicles, equipment projects being paid for through the general fund balance or ARPA dollars, $927,000. New debt issue for various assets as well as roads, $3.9 million. Fire department ladder truck for $1.5 million. Excavator and a single axle plow dump truck being paid for through the West K Utility Corridor TIF, $405,000. And then the 36C Road Town Garage, additional new debt of $11 million. Next page is LD1 growth cap. And as I indicated before, as I said before, the allowed growth was only 46,969. And that was largely due to the low number, largely due to the significant amount of increased revenue sharing from the state. I have to take that into consideration. That's part of the factor, the calculation. And so that dropped the actual dollar amount significantly. The recommended fiscal year 22-23 budget is roughly 1.2 million under the LD1 cap. So therefore, no overcap approvals are necessary for this budget. And to get to that number, I am using the fiscal year 22-23 projected revenues as we all voted on, or as you voted on January 27th. Proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23, top line gross budget increase, operations only, 2.2 million. Additional debt service of 829, almost 830,000, for a total combined increase of a little over $3 million, which is about 18.9% increase. And consider also that includes, those numbers include the ARPA money, as well as the SAFER grant. And the SAFER grant is roughly 900,000 of the operations and total combined. And then the net budget increase, operations only, 835,000, additional debt service, roughly 830,000, for a total of 1.6, almost 1.664 million. So that is a 15.38% increase. I've shown you down below the revenue increases. We're increasing excise tax, building revenue, building permits, beach parking permits, and ambulance billing slightly. And then on the opposite side, on the debit side, it's on the credit side here, but that's another story altogether, is health insurance, basically employee benefits up 233,000, wage increase 188. And I'm just going to hit the big ones here. Retirement plan changes 112, public services, facility supervisor, additional personnel in that spot for 111,000. Estimated wage and salary adjustment due to compensation study of 100,000. And then a host of other things that takes us down to the bottom of the page, where debt service, again, that's a big increase of 830,000. Should not be any news. It's something I've been talking about for literally years. Proposed TIF budget, recurring expenses, salaries and wages, credit enhancement. And that's what I consider the operating activity of the TIFs of 532,000. Capital projects and assets of 204. So that's the connectivity, internet, telecom, branding, traffic lights and related equipment, street scan, pavement management, train stop study, and micro loan funding. And that covers the 204. Debt service, which is a little over half of the total amount being identified here, 825,000, for a total of 1,561,265. And all of those dollars, all of that spending is offset by revenues that we receive from the TIF. Next page is very detailed, and I have it there for when all of us go back to review this document sometime in the future. Capital assets and projects, again, general fund balance spending, 716,250. Money from the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, 210,750, and you can see the items that are covered under that. Those dollars are for, again, assets and projects being paid for through the ARPA funds. And again, we'll talk about that in just a minute. New debt bond issue for various assets listed there, 600,000. New debt bond issue for road, sidewalk, and drainage, 3.3 million. New debt bond issue for items that are going to be paid for through the West K utility corridor, excavator, and the dump truck, 405,000. And then bond issue for the ladder truck replacement, 1.5 million. And then last but certainly not least, 36C road facility, town garage for 11 million. I've taken that, summarized all of that information in this in this slide. Top we just went over. Bottom is our bond debt as of March 31st, as of today, is total bonds outstanding of 14,715,000. We still have 500,000 not issued, authorized but not yet issued for the Lower Village Master Plan, for total bonds outstanding authorized but not yet issued of 15,215,000. And then you can see our what's known as overlapping debt for the RSU as well as York County. That's roughly 26 million. Now, next page, this page is with respect to a change that Mike and I would like, that we are proposing, recommending that we do to this budget, and that's to add $150,000 from the general fund balance to the select board's operational contingency. And we feel this is necessary due to just activity that's occurred in the last 2 months. We've seen significant increases in oil prices, and that hits heating oil, propane, K1, gasoline, diesel. We're also seeing continued escalation of other costs, rising prices overall. And then we've got a host of unanticipated costs that we've identified over the past few weeks. And one in particular is cybersecurity. We are currently investigating, we being Rich Boucher and Mike and I are investigating changing from our current antivirus program, which is Kaspersky. And where is Kaspersky headquartered and maintained? Moscow. So we're doing what so many other towns, cities, corporations are doing. We're considering leaving Kaspersky and moving to a different antivirus. A change like that is not cheap. Kaspersky is a relatively low-cost solution. We're looking at some higher price solutions. And so doing that, as well as we're looking to move to multi-factor or two-factor authentication when getting into our network. So I'm sure you encounter it when you sign on to your bank. We're looking to do the same thing when you sign on to town hall. We are still getting hit quite frequently from bad actors, as we say these days. They're trying to get into our system, and we see reports, Rich sees reports quite frequently. And so we need to tighten things down even farther than they are. So what we'd like to propose is moving 150,000 from the general fund balance. And I've proposed a motion there to approve the use of general fund balance of 150,000 for operational contingencies as the select board deems necessary. And I'd like for you to discuss that at this point.
So to the select board and then to the budget board, I'd like to make a motion to approve the use of general fund balance of $150,000 for operational contingencies as the select board deems necessary.
I'll second that.
Moved in second. Okay, now it's time for discussion, and we'll open it to, I guess, everybody, seeing as how that would probably be the most efficient, but there is a motion pending. John?
Thanks, Blake. I'm sorry, I don't have it open in front of me. What is the amount currently budgeted for select board contingency fund, and or the amount that is in that fund at this time?
Right, there is nothing at this point in this current budget to add to the contingency fund. The balance right now is 105,000.
Okay, so I'm since I know you do arithmetic pretty good, you're allowing for as much as needs of as much as $255,000 to cover these kinds of things.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm feeling very uncertain as to the future, John. Just very.
Aren't we all?
Yep.
So if these are the identified needs, I would be very hesitant to bring to the town meeting a budget that includes $250,000 of unrestricted funds. And I'm wondering if there's a way to delimit the use of these funds. Because if we were to reach the end of this budget year, the next budget year, what this budget is hopefully going to be approved for, and those amounts were unspent, I don't think that it would be in keeping with the spirit of how we budget and approve budgets at town meeting to have these funds available for use at the select board's discretion for other purposes than these kinds of contingencies. I think that the town meeting, I'm sure, will be very sympathetic to the need to allow for contingencies, but not unrestricted funding. So is there a way to put some guide rails on the use of those contingency funds?
What do you have in mind?
If I could just jump in for 1 second, the 105, we have to roll that forward, carry it forward as it's known. The select board has to do that each year. They have the authority to carry forward funds. So 105 is what I'm saying as of 6/30/2001. I'm sorry, 2021. And then we'd add another 150 to bring that up to 255,000. If the select board so desired to crank that back down, they could carry fewer dollars forward as of 6/30/2022. So that's one set of guide rails, if you will, that's available to the board.
So John, do you have any ideas of the guide rails that you would feel comfortable with?
Well, I think it would be beneficial to have these and other unanticipated costs. I think maybe should be made more specific. If that were to be on the warrant and or laid out in the budget. We've learned from past experience that the interpretation anyway is that there's broad latitude for moving funds around within budget areas. I think it would take a kind of a commitment on the part of the select board. But I think that this would be more likely to be approved by the town meeting if it were even a standalone article with very delimited uses. I think that people will understand why we want to make these kinds of allowances. But I think without any restrictions, I'm not positive that people will be in favor.
Well, we've always had a contingency fund that had no limitation. And so the $100,000 falls well within the custom and practice of the budget board and select board going back many, many years. Really, I think you're talking about the $150,000. Is that right?
I'm talking about the additional 150,000.
Yes, that's what I'm.
Yeah, because you're talking about more than doubling, what has kind of been the standard practice.
Okay, so let's
and I don't think it's a bad idea. I just think we need to be somewhat cautious.
Thank you, John. We have two hands up. First up was Tom Wellman, and then to Dan Sayre. Tom? He went away.
All right. Not,
Okay,
he's
are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. You probably feel better about me being muted anyway. But I think, again, this goes back to the age-old problem we all have as budget board members, that the selectmen have the final say on how these dollars are spent despite the fact we've gone through all this process and the whole bit. And I think the real question here is whether we believe with the changes that have taken place in the recent months, whether we think that $150,000 is warranted to be put in additionally to be raised by taxpayers. And even though we're taking it from the general fund, it's still taxpayer money and still needs to be added into this year's budget. So in my sense of what I'm seeing in the economy, I don't think $150,000 is an realistic ask for us to be able to approve. And that, again, like most things, it's up to the Board of Selectmen to decide how that money eventually gets spent. And that's their job. So.
Thank you, Dan, then our good friend Dick, and back to John. Dan?
Yeah, I agree with the gist of what Tom just said, and I appreciate what John is raising. I think that this is a necessary not hedge, but preparation for unpredictable inflation. It's a very reasonable expectation that the unanticipated inflation we've had for the past year is going to continue into the next year. If this were tailored as, if the description to the citizens specified that this was a protection against inflation, particularly in the cost of fuel, I think that would be a wise way to distinguish what this is for and why.
Thank you, Dan. Dick?
I understand the concern as well, but I am placing confidence and full faith in the board to do what's right. I'm frankly today am videoed and WebExed and Zoomed out, having sat through a couple of sessions earlier today. I'm not sure that that's enough money if you want the honest to God truth. Although today the closing price per barrel was about $100, which we haven't seen for many weeks on oil. But the folks that I talked to today were talking about a potential 6 increases and maybe more next year. Auto loans are decreasing appreciably, and that could translate into a lower excise tax rate. I know Joel has tends to trend with historical and best guess information, so I don't want to, but I'm going to throw that cloud over it. And I frankly think that, there's flirting with the R word for next year. And I think that the public today would be very surprised at such a conservative approach. But again, I guess the point I want to really rest on is that I trust the board to do what's right.
Thank you, Dick. Back to John.
Thanks. And for clarification, Joel, do I understand correctly that the proposal is to carry a lower general fund balance by $150,000 rather than raising any additional funds by assessment or taking away from any previously budgeted?
You are correct. We would just take it and lower our fund balance. Yep. I think we have enough room in the fund balance that we can accommodate that, still stay well within our fund balance policy.
Okay, any other questions from either board or the public? Dan, you still have your hand up, are you? Okay, Lionel, welcome to the meeting. Can we bring Lionel in?
Yeah, I believe he needs to unmute.
Lionel, you're muted. There you go.
Okay, am I good now?
Yep.
I mean, I'm agreeing with John that isn't there a place where we could find $150,000 when we're looking at a 19% increase in town taxes? There seems to be opportunities in various departments where, I agree with Dick, they're talking about, all these things. We're all familiar with them. And just spending more money is frankly not gonna help a lot of the people who need help in town.
Thank you, Lionel. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion pending. Roll call vote. Shiloh is not with us yet, I don't believe. Courtney is not with us. Bill? Bill, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Frank?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
And I vote aye. The motion's adopted, a vote of 5 in favor, none opposed, 2 absent. Over to the budget board.
So I'll make a motion that we approve an additional $150,000 coming from the general fund to the selectmen's contingency fund to cover expected increased costs in fuel and other items.
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
I did.
Oh, Dan.
Dan did? I'm sorry.
Dick.
I thought it was Dick.
Yeah, it wasn't Dan.
It was Dick.
It was Dick. I'm sorry, I can't figure out the layout on this, how to see anybody.
So Deb, if you grab, there's an edge to Joel's presentation, and if you drag it to the left, you can expand the Hollywood Squares version of our game area. So
Then. So I'm quickly seeing, I've got Dick, Dan, me, Tom. Am I missing anybody?
John,
John, I'm so sorry. Yep, saw you, ignored you. I'm sorry, didn't mean to. So that's it, just 5 of us?
Say what?
Just 5 of us here?
That's correct. And I have my hand up, Deb, for discussion.
I'll figure this out someday, John. Thank you.
So
Yep, go ahead, John.
may I go? Okay, thanks. I guess before we vote, I would like to know whether the intention is to have this as a standalone warrant article or not.
Right now, I've got it, you'll see on slide number 15 or 15, that anticipating to include it in our use of general fund balance, but I leave it to the select board since it's their warrant. And we can discuss that as we move on to slide 15.
I'm not sure that I can make an informed vote without all the info. Select board.
I don't know what you mean.
what information do you need, John?
I'm wondering whether this would be a separate warrant article or whether it would be incorporated into the budget generally.
Joel?
If we want to skip ahead to page 15, I can do that. And you'll see that there are the possible annual town meeting warrant articles listed. Right now we have 10 articles that are budget related. And if you look on number 2, right now the number is 716,250. I was thinking about adding 150,000 more to that number if this passes, which it already has. So that number could become 866,250, or we add article number 11 to this list.
Then the issue becomes, what if one passes and one doesn't?
Sure. Any of these could be voted down.
Oh, right, it's the domino effect.
Hopefully not number 1.
Deb, I think that's the intent is really not to tie it all together and to allow the town meeting to decide whether they want to add that contingency in without jeopardizing that other number.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem if you want to suggest that it's listed as a total separate line item. I think that that's fair and informed. I'm just wondering, same thing with legal, with everything that played out this week, do we anticipate any other major legal expenses in there? Is there enough in that line item?
Actually, I think we're good.
Good there? Okay.
Don't jinx us.
I don't intend to. So I mean, we can vote on it as is, and then we can do a separate vote if you want to put it as its own line item, or we could amend the motion as is to make it a like a line 11. It's whatever you'd like.
Well, I would note that the budget board does have the authority to put a warrant article on the budget, excuse me, on the warrant. So if we felt that that was the way to go, we could vote on whether we thought that we should have such a standalone warrant article. I think it would be better as usual if the budget board and the select board could kind of figure this out and move forward together.
Tom has his hand up, Deb.
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
So I just think we have a motion on the floor. I think we should vote on that. And then if you want to dictate how we want to put it forward, then we can do a motion on that. So just seems like we've got something on the floor here. Let's vote on that. And then if John wants to make a motion to do that, that would be the best way to do it, I think.
Also, Rachel, thank you, Tom. Rachel has her hand up in the public.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello.
Okay,
Yep.
I'm just raised my hand to speak against my partner. I think that the town meeting doesn't have the level of understanding and the nuance of this budget. And I'm not speaking down to anybody because neither do I. I mean, it's really hard when you're looking at these enormous numbers to understand them. And I think another budget item would be actually more confusing. And I think that if you're supporting spending these funds, and I agree that you're going to need them to put them in the budget, the line item where it belongs and not separate them out. That would be my belief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Back to you, Deb.
Okay. Everybody ready for roll call vote? All right. Dick,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Motion carries 5-0. 2 absent. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Moving on. Another issue that came to light just recently, ARPA spending, fund spending and approval. Town meeting approval is needed for ARPA fund spending, something that came to light recently through our attorney discussing the warrant articles and warrant articles to be placed on the town meeting ballot. The two boards, select board and budget board, have already approved general operating expenses to be spent or to be funded through ARPA. We did that back, you did that back January 27th at our first meeting. It was incorporated in the revenue side and other funds available that are the offset to our gross budget. The number that was agreed to was 271,857. Now, I also had the select board approve capital assets and projects of $210,750. So the select board has already approved that. However, my understanding was that the ARPA funds were grant funds. If you read the final regs on this, it speaks to sub-grant funds. It speaks to a number of things that would lead one to think that these were grant funds. However, I'm hearing otherwise, and therefore town meeting needs to approve the spending for these funds. We've accepted them, we've taken them, $613,892. That's half of what we're going to ultimately receive. And so to keep us nimble, to keep us going, I'm looking for approval for the remaining balance on the COVID dollars, and that's $131,285. So you'll see the three lines there: 271,857, 210,750, and then 131,285. Sum those three up together, and you come to the 613,892. Description I put on there is other COVID-19 related expenses, including essential worker pay and other assets and projects, balance of remaining funds. If I don't get approval for all of these, then we can't really spend this until perhaps approval in November, or approval next June of 2023. So because we don't know what's going to happen, because we don't know what COVID related item could suddenly crop up, I've put on here total additional requested approval by select board and budget board of $342,035. Questions?
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the use of ARPA funds of $342,035 for COVID-19 related expenses, assets, and projects as presented.
I'll second that.
Moved and second. Okay, here comes the discussion. Anybody from either of the boards? Anybody from the public? Okay, so Dan.
Yeah, this is a quick question for Joel. Does this balance of remaining funds that we're signing off on here, the 131,285, does that change any net cost to the taxpayer from numbers we previously approved? Or is this just confirming the, okay, you're shaking your head no, so.
No, we've received $613,892. Our expectation is we're going to spend that.
Gotcha.
We've already identified it as lost revenue within the standard allowance, or something else, essential worker pay. So we've already identified it. Why not get approval for it now, as opposed to nickel and diming it as we go forward?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Dan. Seeing no other questions, we're going to go through a roll call vote. Shiloh, I believe, is still not here. Courtney is not
I'm here.
Oh,
Shiloh's
sorry,
here.
Shiloh. Did you sneak in there? There you go. There you are. Shiloh, how do you vote?
Yeah, I've been here for a while now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Aye.
Shiloh
aye.
votes aye. Courtney is absent still, and will be. Bill?
Aye.
Frank?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
Blake votes aye. The motion's approved. 6 in favor, none opposed, 1 missing or absent. Right? Over to you, Deb.
Okay, I'm going to make the motion. Oh my gosh.
I'll make a motion to use the ARPA funds of $342,035 for COVID-19 related expenses, assets, and projects as presented.
Thank you.
And I
John.
will second. Dan seconds.
Thank you, Dan. I lost you all for a minute. There you are. Okay. Roll call. Dick?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries 5. Yeah, 0-2.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Moving on.
Thank you.
Next slide. This slide is a clarification. You recall that we main PERS public safety plan, we're changing from Plan 2C, and I presented either 1C or 3C. Again, speaking with our council, as well as the main public employee retirement system, main PERS, what was advised to us is to narrow that down, limit it to one plan. And right now, we're looking at Plan 1C. All of you probably recall that 1C is embedded in the current police union contract. And so our expectation is that we're going to roll forward with Plan 1C, get approval for 1C. So that's just clarification so that when you see the warrant article, and it is a warrant article, it is a full page warrant article, one of the most complicated I've seen in a while. And you'll be voting on just one plan.
Lionel, question.
Yes, oh geez, I get the mute.
You're muted, Lionel, you muted yourself.
How about now?
You're good.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. I really have problems with this. Anyway, if I could get a 60-second tutorial, Joel, sometime in the last 5 years, we talked about whether we were underfunded with regards to this. And, you know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I recall that we weren't underfunded. Now the taxpayers have to come up with $1,605,000 plus interest to catch up.
No, this isn't a catch-up. This is a change in plan. Current plan for public safety, which is police and fire, is Plan 2C, which is after 25 years of employment, you retire with 60% of your 3 highest years' wages.
Right.
An average of the 3 highest years.
Right.
What has been proposed through contract negotiations with police, they would like to move to Plan 1C. And what was agreed to by the previous select board was to put this warrant article on the ballot this year. And that moves us to moves them to Plan 1C, which is after 20 years, they receive 50% of their wages, 3 highest years. So instead of 25 years, it goes to 20 years.
But it's less money.
No, it's more money.
Oh.
It's the same amount of money, but
but it's 20 years then.
Exactly. On an actuarial basis, you've got 25 years to accumulate all the dollars
Right.
as opposed to 20 years.
Okay, now, so this would be spread out over 20 years? Is that the expectation?
Spread over 15.
15. Okay, it's just, you know, I will say on this, and you know, obviously I don't have the warrant article in front of me to actually understand it, but from what you just explained, it makes a lot more sense than what I'm reading here. So, okay.
Yep, it's a very complex, well, not complex, it's very dense. And you'll have plenty of time to read it.
Well, plus it's a lot of money. I mean.
It's a substantial amount of money, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Lionel. Let's see, anyone else? I don't see any other hands, so back to you, Joel.
Okay,
Oh,
again,
wait a minute, we got, no, Lionel still got your hand up, so
Oh,
back to you.
okay.
that's just information. We'll click to the next slide. This one, a little more interesting, if you will, more of a benefit to the town of Kennebunk. RSU, and bear with me, I'm just going to read this because it is rather lengthy, and then I'll look for some more information from perhaps Dan Sayre. I was hoping Courtney, but Dan. But anyway, RSU 21, fiscal year 21-22, additional state aid. Back in July, let me even go back further. Back in January of last year, the RSU built their budget on information from the state that showed that they were going to receive state aid for the town of Kennebunk in the amount of $1.7 million. And then at the end of last legislative session, the state legislature increased the amount of funding that towns were going to receive for education. And therefore, a new report was issued known as the ED 279 that indicated that Kennebunk was actually going to receive, and it is receiving, roughly 3.3 million in revenue, total revenue. So that's an additional 1.6 million. So that's the top line. In July 2021, an additional 1.6 million in state aid was identified for Kennebunk. For Rundle, it's an additional 317,000. There was a warrant article that was presented and passed at the district-wide meeting, I believe it was back in May of last year, that allowed the RSU board to have the authority to reduce Kennebunk's assessment if extra dollars came in. Lo and behold, the extra dollars were approved and they are being received this year. It appears that the RSU board had the authority to reduce Kennebunk's assessment by that amount. They did not. There was about a 3-week window there where they could have reduced the town's assessment and therefore our portion of funding for RSU 21. So what happens now is those additional funds received flow to the RSU's general fund balance. I talk about our general fund balance all the time. The RSU, because they do fund accounting, also has a general fund balance. So if they receive more revenue or underspend their budget, general fund balance increases at the end of the year. So those extra dollars that are being received this year theoretically are just going to flow to the RSU's general fund balance and then may be used to reduce future amounts for local additional funds. I know, complicated, but that's actually the language that is used for RSU funding as well as school funding. For some people, it's also known as over EPS, over essential programs and services funding. So that reduction in local additional expense because of these funds, those dollars are spread to all 3 communities. So even though a large portion of the extra benefit was identified for Kennebunk, 1.6 million, identified for Arundel, 317,000, all 3 towns are going to benefit. So next bullet down, 4th bullet down, instead of directly benefiting Kennebunk and Arundel only, the benefit will indirectly spread to Kennebunkport in future years. Possible option to be explored with Maine Department of Education and others, and I put this in italics. Can the RSU board designate the additional state aid specifically for Kennebunk and Arundel in future assessments? Keeping in mind that in past years, I've worked with DOE back in 2007, 6, 8, number of years there where there was contention, and Tom probably remembers this very well because of the state funding change that occurred. We all remember listening to Jim Ryer present, who was the Assistant Commissioner of Education, who presented many, many discussions and analyses upstairs in room 301. So past years, DOE has said, listen, local decision, the local community makes that decision. We give guidance, but ultimately it's a local home rule issue. So what I'm suggesting as a possible option is someone asking the question whether or not the RSU can designate funds that are identified as Kennebunk's for Kennebunk. Dan, anything to add? I probably made it more complex than it is, but thoughts.
Okay, so I'm gonna turn first to Dan. Bill, I see your hand. Dan, you're the liaison, I believe, between the budget board and RSU 21. So if you have something you could enlighten us with, that'd be great.
Well, I have something to say, whether it's enlightening, we'll see. Joel, you did a great job of articulating your understanding, the town's position, and you and I discussed this previously, and I attempted in a finance committee meeting, I think the February finance committee meeting, with the RSU 21, to make this case. And the response from the RSU finance committee, and it's my recollection that the loudest voice on that response was actually Matt Fadiman's, the newest member of that committee, that's not the way it works, that once funds flow into the RSU and flow to the general fund balance, it's like pouring a pitcher into a bathtub. It's all fungible. You can't separate the dollars back out. In addition, I believe, I recall correctly being told that we do not have this money yet. We are receiving this money in this budget year. So the time to review crediting this money back to the town, it's not even a topic of conversation until, well, essentially now. It is an appropriate conversation for the 22-23 budget that we're talking about now, but not something that could have been dealt with prior to now. So that my understanding is that from an RSU standpoint, this has been asked and answered. And I appreciate, Joel, that you've identified perhaps communicating with the DOE about this, because I think it's very much in the town's interest to pursue this further. And with that, I'm interested in what others have to say who probably have more knowledge of this over a longer period of time than I do.
If I could just jump in, I have had an email exchange with the person in charge of finances for DOE, and they basically quoted to me what I just indicated here. They presented law, and they presented what normally happens with extra funds from that the RSU would receive. I contend, or I believe, just as the select board is able to designate funds for certain things, so can the RSU board. I don't know that for certain, but I would imagine that this DOE would be somewhat hands-off if the RSU board agreed to this. But again, it would have to be pursued to the RSU board.
Okay.
I may jump in, just what they can do and what they're willing to do are two different things, or maybe two different things.
Thank you, Dan. And Joel, just to clarify, this is not about taking money away from the school. It's about the unjust enrichment of Kennebunkport. Am I right about that?
Yes, it's just the calculation, the mechanics of it are so cut and dry. All you have to do is look at this document called ED 279 that's published by the DOE that actually reports the dollars being paid out. You can download the current year, fiscal year 21-22 ED 279, and you can actually see what the state has paid to the RSU, and they've received 75% of the dollars so far.
Thank you, Joel. We'll go to Bill, John, Lisa, and then Tom. Bill?
Well, a couple of things. One thing that happened is basically the taxpayers of our community lost half the benefit that they were awarded by the state, and then and in so doing, that 1.6 million is now in the hands of the RSU, who was going to say, no, Kennebunk, I mean, it was awarded to you, but tough luck. We're going to spend it as we want. And that's the end of it. That brings my second question. Is this fraud? I mean, they're basically, it acts as a grant. It was intended to benefit Kennebunk, and now we're being told that it's going to benefit Kennebunk Port, and basically our taxpayers will once again be subsidizing Kennebunk Port. I'm very concerned about this.
I wouldn't characterize it as fraud. There is flexibility. This is accounting. This is how they are applying strict GASB rules. But there's also the alternative to apply reasonableness, if you will, designating the recipients according to what the state originally intended.
Thank you, Joel. John, and then Lisa, then Tom.
Thanks, Blake. So, without getting ahead of some thoughts that I'd like to share with the select board in coming weeks, this is like the fight that the hypothetical married couple has again and again and again for 50 years. And, I would like to remind everyone in the room that though maybe even all of us in the room feel like fully justified in our viewpoint, like there is another party here that has their perspective on this. And if we want to negotiate our way through this, I think we would do well to recognize that there's actually, I guess it's like a throuple, that the RSU as well as the town of Kennebunk Port have their valid perspectives on this. And as we work towards some kind of amicable negotiation, it might be a good idea to keep that in mind. But my questions are, one, what is the action item that we are looking for in this meeting around this issue? Got another question, and I'll lay them out there and mute myself. Is the answer to this question dictated by the funding formula? Have we drilled down, leaving aside what we think is fair and appropriate, have we drilled down through the rules for determining the assessment to see what that results in? Or is this kind of a gray area where you could read the language in one way to come up with one outcome, or another way to come up with a different one? And I'll just mute myself now. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Joel?
Well, the RSU, there, as I said before, there was a very explicit Article 20 in last year's district-wide meeting that everyone voted on, and which passed, that stated if extra dollars are received from the state, the RSU board had the authority to reduce the assessment for Kennebunk and Arundel for fiscal year 21-22. That information, that ED 279, was published in July. The town of Kennebunk did not set the mill rate until I believe it was the meeting of August 14th. Nothing happened between that time, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it was. RSU didn't act, and so therefore their assessment that was passed, that was validated at the annual town meeting in June of last year, was brought forward, signed by the RSU board, brought forward and sent to Dan Robinson, and therefore that was incorporated in the overall tax commitment. So be it, end of discussion. And by accounting rules, I mentioned GASB, Governmental Standards Accounting Board. By those rules, any extra funds that are received during the year that aren't part of the budget flow directly into their general fund balance. That's just accounting. But also in accounting, you have the ability to designate funds, and that's what I'm suggesting. With respect to what's the action item here, I feel as though I needed to present this because rough numbers, again, rough numbers, it appears that we lose about $600,000 in benefit because this will be spread over the 3 towns as opposed to just the 2 towns. So $600,000, it's a little bit of money, and I thought I should inform the 2 boards of this because that would directly impact the mill rate.
Thank you, Joel. To Lisa, then Tom, back to Dan then.
I just had a quick question. Are there other RSUs that are experiencing this issue?
Oh, given the number of RSUs that are out there, I have no idea. And I'll be very honest. This is an issue because we're one of the few RSUs that has some real discrepancies, not discrepancies, but differences, because EPS and this whole formula is dependent upon student count and state valuation. Those 2 items come into play in the calculation. And in this RSU, the number of students to state valuation is very similar in Kennebunk as it is in Arundel. However, the port has a very small student count, but a very high state valuation. And again, because of the calculation is something I could show you as opposed to explain to you. The port receives no state aid. We receive substantial state aid, and Arundel really receives a great deal of state aid. So it's the other towns, the other RSUs you'll find around the state, Newry and Bethel. There's an island, I can't remember the name of it, in the middle of Sebago Lake and Standish. That's an issue. Agunquit and Wells, there's an issue. There are a couple others like this, where the differences between the ratios on student count and state valuation are so extreme as they are with Kennebunkport that Kennebunkport doesn't receive state aid. They're thought of, because their state valuation is so high, they're viewed as a more wealthy community compared to other communities in the state.
Okay, so there's no one we can consult with or, cry with about this.
This is really a calculation. It's not necessarily an interpretation. It's not, we could go to our attorneys and they're going to say, well, what's GASB say? What's state law say? And what does DOE say? DOE has to take a stand or not. If they don't take a stand, then it remains up to the local rule.
Okay, thanks.
It's not easy.
So I'll be quick. Few items aggravate me more than this one in the school funding setup between us and Kennebunkport. And this is just another example of them. Basically the rich get richer and Kennebunk is paying the price and the whole setup. So anything if we need to approach the board, or I would ask the Board of Selectmen to reach out to the school committee and see if there's any way if they can fairly distribute this money, which means that all of it should come towards Kennebunk's assessment, not share it with any of the other towns. I think we should do. Beyond that, I don't think there's much we can do.
Thank you, Tom. Back to you, Dan.
Couple clarifying questions for Joel. Is it the case that there's what is it called? EP 279 funding every year?
Oh yes, every year. And the thing is with ED 279, it comes out, there's one out now for fiscal year 22-23. I can show you the numbers. I can show you what's projected for Arundel and Kennebunk to receive. And that currently is being built into the fiscal year 22-23 budget for the RSU. So the thing is, the legislature, a couple times in the past few years, waits until the last minute. It's the last minute for funding of education. And so suddenly a new ED 279 comes out and we have suddenly an increase in the amount of state aid. That happened in fiscal year, I want to say 17-18, and there was discussion about that. It was a far smaller amount comparatively.
Yep.
This year 1.6 is not trivial.
Right. And my understanding is what I've been told by the RSU is every year we get this funding and it's factored in to the total budget, and we don't track the $279 town by town, because we also don't track expenses town by town.
Well, it's so clear what town. And in fact, if you look at the Article 12, the state funding is incorporated in Article 12, which breaks it down town by town. So I don't necessarily buy that.
Where I think we're hanging up, and it maybe we're too much in the weeds of how to pursue this with the RSU rather than what these two boards can do on this issue tonight. And so I'm asking, maybe I should just stop this, and once a decision is made by these two boards, Joel, I will do my duty as the town's liaison to the RSU as instructed, or we can talk about the kinds of conversations that we might want to set up to pursue this. I think there are two things going on here. One is that standard policy has been that ED 279 funds get poured into the revenue side of the RSU 21 budget, and there's not been allocation in the past. This is an issue because this is an extraordinarily large extra funding that has come in or is coming in this year because of how the state has responded to COVID. And it's making it more acute that the penalty to Kennebunk, the excess generosity of Kennebunk to Kennebunk Port is a significantly large number this year, because the overage this year is 1.6 million rather than the more modest numbers that we see in any given year. Does that kind of capture it?
It does, but I will say that the RSU has already established some level of precedence with this by separating funds and allocating and identifying funds. Several years ago, I want to say in fiscal year 15-16, the RSU received a refund from Maine PERS. We've talked about Maine PERS. There was a recalculation Maine PERS that stemmed back to MSAD 71 days. That was 1.2 million. Again, identified as dollars that were refunded from Maine PERS back to RSU 21 now, that were attributable to when MSAD 71 was the school system. Those dollars, and I did the allocation. I actually did the calculation for whoever the business manager was at that time. Said part of it is actually Kennebunk Ports, part of it's Kennebunk's. Arundel receives nothing. And the RSU board went along with that. So precedence has been set. That again, those were RSU dollars that were allocated to the port and us specifically, leaving Arundel out. So it's awkward. I will also say, I mentioned fiscal year 17-18. That was another year where the legislature enacted a new ED 279 additional school funding. The port should have, again, received nothing. However, that's when DOE actually stepped in and said, oh, this is the way we're going to spread those dollars, and the port received benefit. So this year, DOE is not doing that. DOE is stepping back. This is a tough one. I agree. This is a very difficult one.
Thank you, Dan. We have two members of the public, Lionel and then Rachel. Lionel.
Hi, Joe. I really appreciate you bringing this up, and I believe that we should pursue it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Lionel. Rachel.
Hi, thanks. A couple of things. I guess I would start by saying, I think we could sort of eliminate a lot of these problems if I think we created one municipality, which would, I think, make a lot of sense if we created, we had towns that had one fire department, one police department, one town manager between these towns. This, home rule, local rule it's very expensive, actually. But but I guess I raised my hand actually when Bill Ward talked about Kennebunk subsidizing Kennebunk Port, and I think we should be very careful, anybody on this screen. If you look at the numbers, as I think Joel actually said, in terms of the fact that our allocations are based on property valuation and student count, Kennebunk Port actually holds an enormous portion of the RSU 21 budget, given its pupil count. And people need to be aware of those numbers. And I can just hear the screams of people in Kennebunk Port and their town officials and their boards, hearing us talk about Kennebunk subsidizing Kennebunk Port and the excess generosity of Kennebunk to Kennebunk Port. Anybody who's been a part of these boards and these deliberations and conversations since Baldacci, I'm a Democrat, but since Baldacci, I think, made the worst decision in the world to create this, consolidation mandate, knows that these are really tricky, nuanced issues. And you will find a lot of people who believe firmly that Kennebunk Port is subsidizing Kennebunk and that the excess generosity is going from Kennebunk Port to Kennebunk. So I guess my point is, I think we need to be coming together as a community. And I think our most recent recall also shows that, as a school board and as a school RSU community, we're a community. And I think we need to start thinking and acting and sharing and speaking as a community. These boundaries are artificial. I, for one, have lived in Arundel and Kennebunk Port. I have loved families and children in Kennebunk, Arundel, and Kennebunk Port. I see us as a community. I think we need to start working as a community. And I find these kind of conversations very divisive. And I think that people in Kennebunk need to be aware that, as John said, there's a whole nother point of view out there. And if you put it to a judge or in a court of law, I'm not sure where Kennebunk would end up in that. And in fact, we have done that. We've gone to court. This has been a very carefully adjudicated allocation of funds. So I just think we need, I'm a Kennebunk citizen resident saying that. So I just think you have to be very careful. And I would love to see us start talking and acting like a community.
Thank you, Rachel. Tom?
I have to completely disagree with what Rachel just said, in that going back when she started out the conversation, she said, if we were all one town, and if we were all one town, I would love to figure out the percentage of what Kennebunk Port residents would be paying towards that school. It would be double what they're paying now. And to say that because they have decided to combine with Kennebunk and don't have to pay their fair share of their tax dollars into the education is completely wrong. And I just had to say that. I don't want to prolong the conversation, but I think that you're just looking at it entirely wrong.
Thank you, Tom. So I think there's no action to be taken on this. This was Joel giving us a heads up that this issue is in front of us right now. And Joel, do you need any encouragement or guide rails? Oh, okay. So back to you, Joel.
I just felt like I needed to let people know. That's it. Just gonna move on. Again, you've seen this before. We talked about it. Summary of possible annual town meeting warrant articles. 10 articles broken down. First one is the comprehensive budget article for the general fund as well as the TIF special revenue funds, covering operating expenses and estimated revenues. That's basically where we set the assessment for the town that is incorporated into the tax bills. Next line down is for the general fund balance, various capital projects. And again, I mentioned adding the 150,000 to the 716,250 here, unless given guidance otherwise. I mentioned before as well that the warrant articles are under the preview of the select board and the number of warrant articles. I will tell you right now, the number of articles here will be overwhelming. to many voters. They will look at this and say, we've only had 3 in the past. How come we've got 10 now? Or they will say, I don't really know what's going on. I need to follow the recommendation of the boards. We've heard all of these things over the years. And then we've heard the converse. I want to see more granularity. So here are the 10 that we've developed so far. And these are being refined even as we speak by, I'm working with our legal counsel as well as Mike to develop these. And then these will be brought forward. I'm going to click one more screen here, the budget timeline, and you'll see down towards the bottom of the page, public hearing dates required by charter for the warrant. And so select board meeting on April 12th or April 26th is when the warrant articles will be presented to the board for approval, because the ballot must be ordered no later, and I'm up at the middle of the page here, by Friday, April 15th. So most likely, or I wouldn't say most likely, the select board will see the warrants on April 12th. That's it. I'm done.
That's it.
Questions?
Questions? Lionel has his hand up. Lionel?
Yeah, hi. I was glad if you could go back to page 15, just so I can keep track of where I am.
Sure.
I was really pleased to see that the fire ladder truck is back on. I had read somewhere that it was not going to be on. And I don't understand though, how much of that 1.5 million is going to be paid by the West K utility corridor?
Still trying to get my arms around that, Lionel. I've got to see where we are with all the other debt service that's being paid out of that subsection of the West Kennebunk TIF. So
this number 7 may be adjusted between now and then.
no, it's still going to be 1.5 million. The question is am I going to pull money from the West K TIF, or am I going to pull money from debt service that's incorporated as part of the overall budget?
And then I guess on a more general question on the budget, it just seems like 3% is not enough for salary increases. And I get concerned that we're going to be losing more people to other towns since everybody's competing basically for almost the same pool of people. I'm hoping there'd be some consideration, if it gets approved, that maybe we could increase that amount of money by doing other things in the budget, not increasing the total budget, but just, is that allowable?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. And again, a portion of the select board contingency could be used to supplement dollars as well.
Okay, good. I was also interested in, I was pleasantly surprised about the fire station renovation. It seemed a little low, frankly. If they can get that done and everybody's happy, that would be great. So I was really pleased to see the dollar amount for that. And then one last question, well, it's kind of related, is that I noticed we're buying a new Tesla in the fire department, but in the police, there's been a lot of other towns in the United States that have added electric vehicles. And I just think the town needs to start pursuing more electric vehicles in all of our areas in order to reduce fossil fuels, reduce our carbon imprint, et cetera.
There isn't another Tesla in this budget.
Then I guess it got taken out. I thought it was in the fire.
No,
Okay.
that's what's known as car 2, which is actually a truck. It's confusing the way the fire department speaks of.
Oh, okay. And then, but even trucks are becoming electric. And I think we as a community need to jump on board, for a lot of different reasons.
Well, the police cars, the Explorers that we're purchasing now are hybrid. So
okay, that's good.
We're already going down that path.
It's a step forward.
Joel, I'm sorry for jumping in, but isn't there a line item in there for 100,000 for adjustments if needed on top of that?
For the compensation study, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I just thought that was part of Lionel's question.
Correct,
There's money in there already.
correct, for adjustments, yes.
Does that help, Lionel?
So Mike, did you want to say something?
I think Joel touched on it. I did just want to pledge to Lionel that we have moved to hybrid, and we are looking very closely at moving to all hybrid and indoor electric whenever we're able to do so. We certainly are very cognizant of that.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll go to John, boarding house rules here. John, you're up first.
Thanks. I rise to speak in opposition to the resident from Dane Street regarding a separate warrant article. Kidding aside, I think that it is a good idea to give the town meeting an opportunity to be brought on board and fully included, fully bought into the decision to allow the select board to spend additional amounts from the general fund as needed for contingencies. I think would let folks come in on day one. So I would like to make a motion for a separate warrant article. Joel, maybe you could help me by scrolling back to the proposal.
Page 11.
If you say so. Thank you. I propose, excuse me, I move that the budget board place a article on the warrant reading, shall the town approve the use of the general fund balance of $150,000 for operational contingencies as the select board deems necessary. And I think it would be wise to put a short explanatory note after that. And I seek a second.
Okay, Deb, you have a ruling on that? Does the motion die for lack of a second?
I think so.
Okay. Thank you, John. I don't see any other hands up. I think we're at the end of this business, but we have a unfinished business in terms of minutes. And because the select board has fewer of those.
I'm sorry, Rachel's hand is still up.
I didn't see that. Rachel, yes.
Thanks. It's actually more of a process question. I mean, I guess I'm confused because when John told me he had a meeting tonight, he said it was a budget board and selectmen meeting to go over stuff about the budget. And then, but then I started listening, it sounded like it was one of the first public hearing for the budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Or am I wrong?
Nope, you are correct.
Okay, so am I on now?
Yes.
So, okay, so I guess this did not feel much like a public hearing to me. I just have to say, as a member of the public, I feel like a public hearing for our budget should really be presentation, let the public ask questions. This was a very big discussion between the select board and the budget board. And I gather we're seeing a lot of motions for the first time, which I understand in terms of the budget process. I just want to kind of say as a process point, as a member of the public, this does not feel very inviting as a public hearing. I mean, if I hadn't done all the years I've done in this town around this budget, I would never have spoken in this meeting. I would never have felt comfortable asking a question. So I guess I'm confused as how the process brought us here to the first public hearing of the budget when there's so many sort of first time that motions that these boards are looking at. And I'm just looking for an explanation to the timing and the process, because I do think public hearings are really important. It's part of how democracy works. We all know that the highest legislative body of the town is the public. So I'm just trying to understand, because this does not feel like a public hearing to me. I'm trying to understand. I mean, I was like, I had to wait 10, 50 minutes to say anything for any one of these motions. So I'm just trying to understand how that happened.
Well, the budget process was done in front of the public. So that was where the public had an initial opportunity to ask questions and participate in the process. And this is, by my recollection, the way that we've always done this. This is the first hearing. And Joel, you're the potentate of this process. So correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure. No, actually, in past years, and I'm going to go with past practice here, I would present the budget and through a PowerPoint, and then the public would be available to speak pro or con as to the budget as being presented. This time, made a few changes here as we go. I believe we now have a budget that we're going to go forward with. And so the select board could now open this up for further public input. I can't see who's in the public right now, but
Or we have 9 members of the public.
and so the board would now open this up to the public.
Which we've done all along. So we presented the budget in February. The public had every opportunity to be heard at that time. This is the first hearing, and there will be a second hearing where they'll have an opportunity to be heard. The only 2 new motions, one was precipitated by the economic climate that we're in, and the other was to clarify the use of ARPA funds. I don't see anything that is new or different. Shiloh?
Thanks. Yeah, so I missed the very beginning of this meeting, and maybe that was done. But typically in a normal select board meeting, we would have, at some point during the meeting, we would open a public hearing, in which case that would be the specific public hearing portion of the meeting. Was a public hearing formally opened at the beginning of this meeting, or have we not done that yet? Because it sounded like Joel was suggesting that now we would open a public hearing after having squared away the issues that were outstanding with the budget.
I referenced a public hearing at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, so there was a public hearing that was opened
Yes.
already.
That's what's going on.
Okay. So I guess that to me is where probably, and Rachel, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I am trying to remember that, having done this many times before, like specifically how this worked. And it sounded like to me that was the difference for tonight, because Joel, that was my memory as well as in the past. It's been, we watch you present the budget summary, we turn it out, we open the public hearing, people on the board ask questions and open the public hearing. But it's all budget that's been settled during the budget process with maybe some like final tweaks already in. It seemed like tonight, the difference this year was that we had a fair number of those things to be settled. Now, as of right now, we have the final budget that's going forward to the voters. And right now we are also opening it to have opened a public hearing. We opened a public hearing on a budget that wasn't completely settled because we still had these questions to be answered tonight. So we're doing 2 things at once in the same night, which is fine. But to me, it seems like that may be where the discrepancy is coming in, or why it feels different this year than it has some other years. But certainly, if we want to just take a pause and formally invite anyone in the public to ask additional questions, if there was any piece of the budget summary or budget, anything that anybody wants to ask, this would be an excellent time to do that before we close the meeting or move on.
I've been asking for public input all along the way, but more than happy to do it. I see 9 attendees. Rachel has her hand up, but I see Andrew Frieda. Andrew.
Hi, I think I've lost track. I remember Courtney saying something about the fire ladder truck might be joint financed with the port. Is that off the table now?
No,
Mike?
that's still a possibility. However, since one fire truck should be replaced within the next 18 months or so, we decided to go with authorization of the full amount, and that would give us the opportunity if the discussion stalled or changed. Mike, is that a?
Have to.
So that would be like the four corners, the money would be authorized, but not necessarily spent.
Why did we get
Correct.
them to use the money that we gave them that they don't deserve to pay for?
Hold on.
Thank you
Back
for
to you, Andrew.
clarifying. Thank
Are
you for
you-
clarifying that. I definitely don't want to suggest adding that to the warrant article itself, but that would be nice for people to know that we're continuing to see if we can find joint funding for that. Just one other thing before I sign off. I've been trying to educate myself to the town politics and the RSU politics, and the boards do operate very differently. And I think part of the confusion, and I'm glad that Rachel referenced Governor Baldacci, because we are definitely enjoying or suffering from the consequences of the Baldacci decision to combine. But I'm very impressed with the deliberations. I watched all of the budget board meetings, either live or recording. There was a lot of work that was done, a lot of tedious work. And I appreciate all the effort by the budget board and also by the select board. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Back to you, Rachel.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I'm just trying to really, because I've been doing this for 20 plus years, trying to think about how we can have the most community engagement. And I've been in a lot of these budget meetings, and especially the budget public hearing meetings, where I have actually not been allowed to really engage and talk about it, especially not during the actual budget process. So I guess I'm just asking people to listen in a non-defensive way, to say that, if it's a public hearing on the budget, I think the public should actually be given priority. I think you should open up to the public first, and which is a problem if you haven't actually dealt with these motions. Then maybe it would have been more appropriate to have a meeting between the select board and the budget board to decide what you're going to do on these motions, so that when you have a public hearing on the budget, you can open it up to the public first, after some, explication. And I just, this is a really important part. And, if there's 9 people here, it's Zoom. Maybe 9 people are watching and have questions, but, after all this dialogue and debate, might not want to ask the question. I'm really just trying to hold process and the importance of the public piece of this. And, I've been doing that for 20 plus years. So, and I'm just wanting people to hear that.
Thank you, Rachel. So is there anyone else that would like to be heard? All right, we think we are right now is that we need to approve minutes of the budget meetings. The budget committee has quite a number more, because apparently they didn't approve minutes from last year. So what I'm going to propose is that you allow the select board to approve the minutes and then sign off, turn the Zoom meeting over to the budget board, if that would be amenable, if you would be amenable to that. I don't see anybody objecting. So Shiloh, can you help me out? Item 3, approval of the minutes. Do you have that in front of you, or do you need me to read these? Okay, I'll read these. So item 3 for the select board is approval of minutes of budget meetings. And I think we can do these all at once. Is that right, Joel, or do we need to do them one at a time?
All at once would be.
Okay. So the minutes are from the meeting of February 5th, 2022, February 3rd, 2022, February 1st, 2022, January 29th, 2022, and January 27th. So we're moving approval of those minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Shiloh?
Aye.
Courtney is not with us. Bill?
Aye.
Frank?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Yes.
Sally? I vote aye. The motion is adopted. A vote of 6 in favor, none opposed, 1 absent. And I would solicit a motion to adjourn at this time for the select board.
So moved.
Motion to, yeah. Second.
Okay, who moved it?
Bill.
Bill did, and Shiloh seconded, or is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, roll call. Shiloh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Courtney is absent. Bill?
Aye.
Frank?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Sally?
Yes.
And I vote aye. The motion to adjourn is adopted. A vote of 6 in favor, none opposed, 1 absent. And we will bid you adieu.
Thank you.
I'm all alone. It's recording. I think you, oh, there's Joel. This probably isn't going to work real well.
Mike and Joel, sorry to crash, but I thought this was where we are meeting as a budget board. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
Oh, okay. Just got
Yeah.
back
Maybe-
on.
It just,
Had a technical error, our apologies.
Yep.
Yeah, no, whoever was the host left, and I wish I could say I've never done that myself.
What I do when the host leaves is just help myself to their liquor cabinet. So,
as long as they've got good scotch.
yeah. And if they have nice sheets, sorry.
A little known fact, the Goldilocks story is about John Costin.
Yeah. My question
Someone's
is,
been drinking from my liquor cabinet.
do we have a quorum though? Because it was very, very, very important to Kathy Nolet that we get this business done tonight.
Oh, yeah, I've already received an email from Kathy.
Say, did they? I thought I had Deb's contact information in my phone and I don't, otherwise I would be trying to get her back on.
She just sent me an email and I said, we're back on.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh,
So-
good.
If anyone else asks, the way I got back in was to use the link off of the budget board's agenda.
Right.
Okay. Anyone else can't find their way home. So while we're waiting, Dan, yeah, Echoplex, don't you wish you'd saved the one that you sold for whatever in 1975? Talking about Echoplexes.
Yeah. Isn't that a Los Angeles venue?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No, it's a guitar pedal. It's a tape. It's a delay, an early delay pedal.
Dinner now.
That actually uses a tape recorder.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But I thought the Echoplex, yeah, it's a live music venue in Los Angeles.
I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm also looking at, Here's a Maestro Echoplex EP3. We're not being recorded, right? Oh, we are being recorded.
I think we're being
Fascinating.
recorded, so don't say anything that you don't want the world to know.
Well, I just didn't want to promote a product on a town meeting, but here's one
Dan
available
Sigurd
use
for
for,
Maestro Echoplex.
yeah, $1,700. Yeah, the Echoplex is in Echo Park.
Oh, great. Well done.
Yeah, I've heard bands like announce they'll be live at the Echoplex, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, remember that? Remember live music?
Hey, Claudia and I are going to a show tomorrow night.
Who, where?
Now I'm really going to enjoy having this on tape as a political candidate, no less. We're going to see the Brian Jonestown Massacre. Yeah, Joel's looking very concerned.
Where are you going?
The Sinclair in Boston.
Okay,
Sounds great. I don't know the act. I will look it up.
I've heard of it. Yep.
They are, believe it or not, when you hear the music, the name makes sense because it's inspired by like 60s psychedelia and all the unique instrumentation that Brian Jones brought to the Rolling Stones, but sort of reinterpreted through. They were an LA area band that sort of grew up in the late 90s. Their front man has just continued to churn out music at a phenomenal rate.
Sounds great. I'll check them out.
Yeah, very drony, very drony.
Here comes Dick. That's great.
The last time I had the opportunity to argue about band names, I was strongly advocating for Manson Family Circus.
Yeah.
my bandmates were like, that's really poor taste. And I was like, that's the point.
Right.
Well, one more and we have a quorum.
Says Joel, hoping this conversation will pivot
Yes,
to something else.
Please. Yes. Joel's like, please, can we go back to talking about raiding people's liquor cabinets?
Joel, I think you have 4 now?
Do we? I just see,
I see 3.
I see 3.
Oh, you do? Okay. We don't have.
You get your chair on there?
No, and I emailed Debbie.
She's not in yet.
Give her a few more minutes.
Well, nature abhors radio silence. I am contemplating my first live concert since winter of 20 that is scheduled for August.
Mm.
And I am hoping that I'm going to feel comfortable doing that.
We're trying to squeeze in some entertainment during the lull between the variants, the COVID variants.
I think it's a reasonable strategy. Never would have guessed it. Hard to forecast.
Yes, it is. You'll know eventually if you've made a mistake.
I was very happy to have made it out to see my mother for the first time well, it would have been what, 3 years in May.
Wow.
Rachel and I got out there 2 weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it really was. Dan, does the party send out the flag lapel pins, or do you have to buy that for yourself?
I bought oh, very good. I didn't know how well these show up.
Oh
I
no,
got
it
them.
pops, man, especially on the black jacket.
Yeah. I got these for myself.
Is it crossed with Ukraine or something?
It's actually the main flag in the USA.
Oh yeah, good. I didn't.
I just happened to have it on this blazer, and then I had to put this blazer on because I was in professional Winnie the Pooh attire for earlier Zooms today.
What is professional?
Yeah. You have us
Winnie the
intrigued
Pooh.
now.
You know, imagine Winnie the Pooh's outfit.
Yes.
I'm wearing sweatpants.
Oh.
Dan,
Yes, ma'am.
Winnie the
Yeah.
Pooh doesn't wear anything.
Yes, I know. I thought I should clarify.
Nothing but your fur. Okay, and a red t-shirt.
Yeah. So glad this is being recorded.
What are you guys waiting for? One more?
We don't have a forum.
Have you texted Debbie or Dan?
I think Joel may be communicating with Debbie right now.
Tom Ullman?
By the way, I need you to know, I have been censoring myself. This is me being discreet.
Yeah, me too, which is the sad part.
Me too.
Some people thought if they hung around, they might get to hear Rachel and I arguing about separate warrant articles.
Mhm.
Sorry to disappoint you folks.
Okay, I got Tom. He's
Oh.
back on. So
All
we'll
right.
have a quorum in a minute.
And you're just gonna adjourn, is that what you're doing? That's
No,
hysterical.
we have to approve all of our minutes going back for 2
Oh,
years.
Jesus, okay, I got you, I didn't know that you were doing, oh my God.
John, I was tempted to suggest that your objection was unwarranted,
Oh,
but fortunately I thought better of making that
Yes.
fun.
thank you. I owe you. If Debbie is not coming back on, I'm going to ask everyone to go really slowly because Kathy has asked for very meticulous recording. Joel,
We're back on.
I have a question for you.
Oh, good. Thank you. I didn't have a cell phone. Okay, I'll pass the word. Thank you. Okay, Debbie's getting back on now. Kathy,
Oh, yeah.
Kathy Nolet called. Debbie.
Yeah, she trusts us. Of course she does. She was just, calling to check in on us.
So this is good.
In your opinion, Joel, and I guess Debbie too, do we need to restart the budget board meeting?
It was never ended.
It was never ended, and are we going to have the same attendees?
Oh, I would imagine Lionel's, I would imagine everyone's gone. They really don't want to hear you.
I mean, just on the board.
Oh, yeah. Yes, exactly. Yep.
So we have, I know we have Dan, we have Dick, Tom, and Debbie's on the way.
Yep. So theoretically, Debbie's going to be on. Come on, Debbie. Tom's walking and talking.
By the way, I don't know who has the controls, but I'm not in as a panelist. I don't. Oh, maybe I am. Take that back.
Actually, Mike should be driving.
I must be because I can mute and unmute myself. Well, yeah,
We can do that.
but I
John-
can't
John.
see full
You
screen.
want
Yeah.
video?
I don't really care.
Well, let me see if I can do that.
I mean, I did have my
There we
hair
go.
done today.
There you go. You should be all set to start that.
I mean, you could approve the most recent set of minutes, the ones from January and February of this year. Up here's Debbie.
I did have my hair done today. It would be kind of a waste if you couldn't see that.
Well, that was fun.
Okay, we're back together for the first time.
I was just afraid of Kathy literally hunting us down and killing us tomorrow, Deb.
Oh, yes. Yes, she would. She would.
Well,
All
as
right.
soon as it ended, I went, wait a minute, we didn't get 2 minutes.
So,
I don't want Kathy after me either.
so the next step is for the budget board to approve the minutes from 27, 29, 1st, 3rd, 5th. So 5 sets of minutes. Motion?
No, there were 5 sets and then we had January 27. Oh, wait a minute.
Yep,
7,
20.
5, 3, 1. Sorry, Joe, we had extras. January 29, 27. And then we had December 16 and 14.
Let's do the most recent set first, those 5 meetings in January and February 1st.
I'll make a motion. We approve those 5 meetings.
Thank you.
Second. Second.
Moore?
Dick, thanks.
Deb, do we have any restrictions on who can vote to approve those minutes?
I don't think so. Let me see.
No, because everyone, I believe everyone was there. Kathy gave me a little cheat sheet here. Yeah, everyone. Deb, you were late a couple of times, but you were in the meetings.
Stop.
So all 5 of you can vote on them.
That 4-letter W word, you know. Okay.
So I have a
Made.
motion. I have a second.
Yep. Tom,
I'm in favor.
Dick,
Yes.
Dan? I
Yes.
thought he was. Yep. John,
Yes, please.
I'm a yes. Anybody else I missed?
So Bob Fury and Chris Clough are absent.
Yep. 502.
Okay, so second page. So I've got the minutes of December 16th and the minutes of the 14th. John was not in attendance on the 14th, and Deb, you were
wasn't
absent on the 16th.
Yep.
So I need a motion on
So I'll make a motion. To approve the minutes of the 14th.
Second.
So everyone except John, on the 14th, no Deb, so, I'm sorry,
No,
no John, no John.
No, John, I was there.
On the 14th.
All right. Dick,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
Okay, so 403, is that how we record it?
Yes,
Good.
And then I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the 16th, if I got the date right,
correct.
Yes.
as presented.
Second.
Second.
Okay, I can't vote on that one. Dick,
Yeah.
Dan,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Okay, so we recorded 403.
Actually, for the 14th, John, you should abstain.
Oh, do I have it backwards then?
No, I think he got it right, Joel. I think
He didn't vote, so we did 403.
right.
He didn't vote on the last one. Oh yeah, I guess you're right. He shouldn't vote on this one. Right, okay.
Wait, I was absent on the
Right.
16th. John was there,
Okay,
right?
then John didn't vote the first time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Both are 403, either way.
Yeah, right.
And then 403 or 413 as well. Okay.
403 on both, yeah.
Good. All right, next one are the minutes from, let's see, you had a meeting, budget meeting on March 17th.
Of last year.
Correct.
Yep.
And Dick, am I correct that you were not present at that meeting?
Oh,
I can't remember.
No,
Can't
he
remember
was there.
yesterday.
He was there. I saw him. If you can
I
actually.
believe you.
There's a recording of it.
Okay, okay. I thought there was one that Dick opted out of.
No, he was there.
I have a hard time remembering what color socks I wear, and I only wear one color socks.
Okay, so I need a motion on the March 17th minutes.
Make a motion, we approve the March 17th minutes, 2021, right?
Correct.
As presented.
Second.
Okay.
Yep, I'm in favor.
Yes. Dan,
Yes.
I'll be a yes. Tom,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
All right, this one you can do 502.
Very good, thank you. All right, last but not least. Minutes from January 28th to February 11th, 2021.
Make a motion, we approve them as presented.
You were all there.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
All right, we'll take Dick. Thank you. Only because I saw his name come up first. And everybody was there. All right, Dick,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. 502.
Hallelujah, thank you. And now,
I move we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Let's thank Kathy for calling me. Like everything disconnected, my computer went dead. And I went, oh, okay, we're done.
something tells me the vote is 502.
I'm with that. Good. Good night, all.
Good night, Tom.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night, Dick. Good night, Debbie.
Good night, John Boy.